Well, shalom, Boker Tov, good morning. Thank you for being here. We've been looking at different aspects of the prayer structure, and today I want to share just what is the midnight prayer, but also I want to mention a little bit of the Mincha prayer, which basically is what we've been seeing the morning prayer, the Shacharit prayer. It's what we call the prayer attributed to Abraham Abinu in the morning. And then the Mincha prayer is attributed to Isaac, our patriarch, and the evening prayer is attributed to Yaakov Avinu. So the longest one is the Shacharit prayer and the Mincha prayer, but they basically mirror one of the other. And our sidurs, when we do our morning prayers, they show us we saw it on the second study about the contents of the Siddur when we wake up in the morning, and then we have the Shacharit for the weekdays, and then we have the Mincha for the weekdays. In this particular Siddur from Ashkra that I have on my hands, it's on page 232, the Mincha for the weekdays. Let me get into it. And we are told in the book of Numbers 28 that the people of Israel were supposed to bring 2 lambs every day into the altar, and one is in the morning and one on the afternoon. So these 2 services, as the instructions on the prayer book tell us, are exactly related to the 2 lambs. So the Shacharit morning prayer is because the lamb in the morning, and the Mincha prayer is because the lamb in the afternoon. And basically you do the same prayers that you do upon waking up on the morning, and then somebody's got their mic open, and after you do your basic morning upon arising all the way until before Pesukei de Simra, then you do what we have here basically is Psalm 145 for the Mincha prayer, and what we call Ashrei. And then after that, you jump into the 18 prayers of the Amidah. And that's basically the same thing. The book is taking for granted that everything we did in the morning we'll do on the afternoon, except that the Amidah will have to do it because we're standing right in front of the throne of glory. So after that, it's basically just a couple pages on the Mincha. Then we have the Ma'arid, which is the end of the day or before we go to bed for weekdays. And let me just go through it real quick. Page 257 on this Art Scroll Siddur. Ma'arid for weekdays, we begins with he is the merciful one who forgives iniquity and does not destroy. He repeatedly restrains his anger and does not arouse his total fury. Adonai said, may the king answer us on the day we call, and then we say the Baruch, and then the blessings of the Shema, which is the main body of prayer, as we saw with relation to the Shacharit. And the blessings of the Shema basically are the Shema itself, and I always look at it surrounded by the word love, Ahava, Rabat, and then Ahavat Olam, Beit Israel. With an eternal love, you have loved the house of Israel, your nation, your Torah and commandments, decrees and ordinances have you taught us. And then we will say the Shema. We will say the Shema, and then the prayers after the Shema. And it will come to pass that if you continually listen to my commandments that I command you today to love Adonai, your God, and to serve him. And then after all these prayers, we end up the day service with the phrase, lay us down to sleep, Adonai our God, in shalom. Raise us up, our King, to life, and spread over us the shelter of your shalom. Direct us well with your good countenance from before your presence, and save us for your name's sake. Shield us, remove us foe, plague, sword, famine, and woe, and remove spiritual impediment from before us and behind us, and shelter us in the shadow of your wings. For God who protects and rescues are you. For you are God, the gracious and compassionate King. Safeguard our going and coming for life and for peace, and from now until eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who protects his people Israel forever. And then after all these couple prayers, you go into the Amidah, and this is basically the Ma'ariv prayer to finish the day, which is attributed to to Yaakov Avinu, and when he came to Mount Moriah, and he put some stones to lay his head upon the stones, he had a dream of the ladder going up to heaven and the angels coming down. So we can see in here that our prayers that we do every day is trying to resemble the greatness of our patriarchs, and that everything that we do. One time I asked one of our beloved rabbis in Jerusalem, his name is Rabbi Abraham Greenbaum. He's one of the big rabbis from Breslov, and I was sending emails to him, and he always very kindly answers all our questions. And I say, Rabbi, why when we pray for our sons and daughters on the Shabbat table, why do we say that may the Lord make our daughters like Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah? And when we pray for our sons, we say, may the Lord make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. And my question was, why don't we pray for them just like our daughters, that the Lord make our sons like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? And he said, well, that's a good question, Edgar. It's just that in the case of men, it will be too much for us to try to be like the patriarchs, because they have the great sehut, or the great merit of being the giants on the life of the Jewish people, for us to imitate. We should look into being like them, but when we make the prayer for our sons, it's enough for us, since the first two brothers that didn't fight between each other was precisely Ephraim and Manasseh. We have that the first two boys, Cain, he killed Abel, and then we have the problem with the sons of Abraham, Ishmael and Isaac, and then we have Jacob with Esau. There is always problems between inside the families, and since the Torah is looking for the right family from which the Messiah is gonna be coming from, that's why we have the word Tabledot. The Torah is scanning in all the families in the book of Bereshit, looking for the generations of the Messiah. So finally, the Torah finds it when there is two brothers that they don't fight. And when Joseph brought Ephraim and Manasseh in front of Yaakov Avinu, he placed the older towards the right of Abraham, and the younger towards the left, of Jacob Avinu. And then we remember that Jacob crossed his hands. He puts his right hand on top of Ephraim and his left on top of Manasseh. And Joseph tried to fix it. He said, no, father, this is the oldest one. And Jacob says, I know. Anillo dati. He said, I know, but it has to be like this. And I think part of the test was to see the reaction of the two boys. And of course, Ephraim wasn't going to say anything. And Manasseh, he didn't say nothing. He was the one that could have said, hey, I'm the older, put your right hand on top of my head. And they remained quiet, and they peacefully received the blessing of their grandfather. And they even are made like the tribes of Israel. He said, these are like my sons, like Reuben and Levi. They will be from the tribes of Israel, and they will be just like my sons. So Joseph, in this regard, he's the only one of the tribes that his sons are counted with the tribes of Israel. And that's due because the study of the Torah that he learned when he was young with his father, all the Torah that his father received from Abraham, from Shem, who the sages tell us he was Melchizedek. So all the wisdom of Melchizedek, the wisdom of Abraham, the wisdom of Yitzhak is being put into Jacob's, and then Jacob puts it into Joseph, and then Joseph teaches it to his two sons in the darkest place on earth, which is the place of witchcraft, Egypt. So being able to raise these two boys in perfection, and the boys don't say nothing when they're coming to receive the blessing of their grandfather. That's what I think that was what Yaakov wanted to perceive in these two boys, which from then on it is told that we should bless our sons in the merit or in the sehut of Ephraim and Manasseh, which is a great inheritance for us. So having said that, I'm gonna go into this PowerPoint, which is not a very long one, but it's a very beautiful prayer. And I hope it can help you, like it's been helping me to develop the understanding of the prayers that we have on the Siddur, on the book of prayer. And this is David Hamelech, King David, and it's called the prayer of the sweet singer of Israel, the prayer of the king. So the Psalm 119:62 says, I arise at midnight to praise you for your just rules. That's King David. It was taught in a Baraita in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, son of Rabbi Hanina. Abraham instituted the morning prayer, as it is stated, when Abraham came to look out over Sodom, the day after he had prayed on its behalf, and Abraham rose early in the morning to the place where he had stood before the Lord. Bereshit 19:27. And from the context, as well as the language utilized on the verse, the verb standing means nothing other than prayer. Isaac instituted the afternoon prayer, as it is stated. And Isaac went out to converse, the word in Hebrew is lashua, into the field towards the evening. And conversation means nothing other than prayer, as it is stated. A prayer of the afflicted when he is faint and pours out his complaint before the Lord. Psalm 102:1. Obviously, Isaac was the first to pray as evening approached, at the time of the afternoon prayer. Jacob instituted the evening prayer, as it is stated, and he encountered it. That's the Hebrew word Vayifgah, the place. And he slept there, for the sun had set. Bereshit 28:11. The word encounter means nothing other than prayer, as it is stated when the Lord spoke to Jeremiah, and you do not pray on behalf of this nation, and do not raise on their behalf song and prayer, and do not encounter, tifka, do not encounter, do not tifka with me, for I do not hear you. Jeremiah 7:16. Jacob Jacob prayed during the evening after the sun had set. So this is basically what we've been saying about the patriarchs being in their merit, that we have the shacharit or morning prayer in regards that Abraham, he will arise early in the morning to do the will of the Lord. And then Isaac, when you remember Eliezer, the servant of the Lord of Abraham, he came with the wife for his son, Rivka. When she saw this man standing on the field, she said, "Who is that beautiful man standing over there?" And Eliezer said, "That is Isaac, your husband." And then she immediately covered her head. And Jacob, we mentioned it, that he came to the Mount Moriah, and he put some stones under his head to lay to sleep, and then he had a dream, and he said, "This is not other than the gate of heaven and the house of the Lord." And that's why we have the 3 daily prayers instituted at the right time, just because these great men of the people of Israel, they were willing to do the will of our Father in heaven, and they went through all kinds of tests during their lives that a lot of us would probably not be able to pass any of those tests, but the Lord was able to get them through the tests. And because what they did and the love that they show for the Lord in heaven, our prayers now are done remembering these 3 great men. The time of prayer and the service of the temple. And it was taught in a Baraita in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, that the laws of prayer are based on the laws of the daily offering. If somebody has their mic open in your phone or your computer, you can mute it. Let me keep on reading. So the time of prayer and the service of the temple. And it was taught in a Baraita in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, that the laws of prayer are based on the laws of the daily offerings. Why did the rabbi say that the morning prayer may be recited until noon? Because although the daily morning offerings is typically brought early on the morning, it may be sacrificed until noon. Rabbi Yehuda says, "My opinion is that the morning prayer may be recited until 4 hours into the day. It is because the daily morning offering is sacrificed until 4 hours." And why did the rabbi say that the afternoon prayer may be recited until the evening? Because the daily afternoon offering is sacrificed until the evening. Rabbi Yehuda says that the afternoon prayer may be recited only until the midpoint of the afternoon, because according to his opinion, the daily afternoon offering is sacrificed until the midpoint of the afternoon. And why did they say that the evening prayer is not fixed? Because the burden of the limbs and fats of the offerings, that they were not consumed by the fire on the altar until the evening. They remained on the altar and were offered continuously throughout the entire night. This is the reason why at time of the temple, we didn't have a Marib prayer. We didn't have a night service on the synagogues. So we only had the Shacharit prayer, the morning prayer, and the Mincha, or midday prayer, just like the service was on the Holy Temple. And since after the midday service, the limbs of the lambs and all the fats and bones and everything that remained on top of the altar for the offerings that the Kohanim brought into the altar and the whole community brought between the 2 tamids, the tamid in the morning and the tamid in the afternoon, the community offerings have to be brought on between these two services. And then we close the daily service with the afternoon tamid. So the fat and the bones and the meat and everything related to the afternoon tamid remains on top of the community offerings, and everything remains on the altar burning throughout the night. And in the morning, when the Kohanim, they wake up, they will come, and the first thing they have to do, they cast lots. You can remember on the previous videos that we did, they will cast lots to see who will clean the altar, who will bring the ashes from the altar, and whatever remained from the night, they will put aside and they will put back to the burning when the service begins. So everything will be finally consumed on the fire on top of the altar. So this is one of the reasons in Avaraita why we don't have a nightly service on the Holy Temple. But even though we don't have a fourth service, night service, or which will be seen also as a fourth service on the temple or on the synagogue, we have King David. King David also is known on the rabbinic world, or on the prayer theme world, as the fourth leg. Rab, he says, a person should never bring himself to undergo a test. As David, the king of Israel, he brought himself to undergo into a test, and he failed. David says before God, Ribon Shel Olam, master of the universe, for what reason the one says in prayer, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and God of Jacob, and one does not say, the God of David? The Lord, blessed be he said to David, they have undergone ordeals or tests before me, and you have not undergone any test before me. David says before him, examine me or test me, Lord. Subject me to a test. And as it is stated on Psalm 26, test me, Lord, and subject me to an ordeal. Try my kidneys and my heart. The Lord, blessed be him, he said to him, I will test you. I will subject you to an ordeal, and I will perform a matter for you that I did not perform for the patriarchs. As for them, I did not inform them of the nature of their test, while I am informing you that I will put you to a test involving the matter of a married woman with whom relations are forbidden. Immediately, as it is written, and it came to pass one evening that David rose from his bed. So in this description, King David is asking the Lord in heaven, I want to be part of your throne of glory. And even the sages, they tell us on the halakha that it is forbidden for the community, for any of us, to have a table with three legs. It's not seen as an stable table in our house to have a three-legged table. So Jewish people, they don't use three-leg table. They use a four-leg tables, and we don't see it on a three-legged chair. We normally sit on a four-leg chair because a three-leg chair would be dangerous for you to sit. So in this regard, we take for granted that the throne of glory, or the chariot of the Lord, the Mirkava, has four wheels or four corners. And we take for granted that the throne of glory has four legs, where the Almighty God will sit on the throne of heaven. We take for granted that if we can see it in our early side of performing things or physical things on this world, if he has a throne in heaven, we take for granted, the sages tell us, that the throne is supposed to have four legs and not three legs. So King David, being a great man of halakha, a great man of meditation, a great man of song and prayer and study of the Torah, a great warrior, a great general, a great king, he is asking the Lord in heaven, Lord, you have Abraham, you have Isaac and Jacob. Could you consider me to be the fourth leg of your throne? Can I be the one that upholds your glory for the people of Israel, being like one of the patriarchs? And the Lord is basically telling him they went to several tests and they didn't ask to be on the test, and they didn't ask to be the support of my throne of glory, even though they passed the test and they are what they are. And David says, test me, Lord, test me, test my kidneys, test my heart. And not only the Lord told him, I'm going to test you, but I'm going to tell you what I'm going to test you with. I'm going to test you in matters of woman, in matters of temptation. And you're not going to pass the test. I can tell you right now, I know you because I formed you in your mother's womb, and you're not going to pass the test. And King David is like, test me, Lord, test me. I want to be just like the patriarchs. In other words, you need me. You need me because I'm an extension of Adam. When Adam sinned on the Garden of Eden, at the beginning of the creation, the Lord, we have this midrash that the Lord told Adam, now because of your transgression, the king of Israel, from whose loins will come the Messiah, is not going to be able to be born. And Adam, he asked Lord, how many years you need for him, Lord? And the Lord, blessed be him, he say 70 years. And Adam says, take 70 years from my 1,000 span of uh, life and allow that this sweet singer of Israel, this beautiful man of Israel named King David, be allowed to be born into this world and accomplish the task that you created for. So the Lord took 70 years from Adam, and he was able to raise King David. So we can see in the name Adam, it forms an acrostic. The Aleph for Adam, the Dalet for David, and the Mem for Mashiach, because the task of Adam he was not able to accomplish has to be taken forward by the King of Israel, King David. And from King David comes King Messiah. So we can see the three personalities are looking into accomplishing the perfection of humanity. And whatever the first one didn't do or the second couldn't accomplish, King Messiah will for sure accomplish the task. So the Lord told King David that he was going to be tested in the matter of woman. And what did the sages tell us that he did? Since he had, I think, 18 women, counting his wife and his concubines, he said it to be with their wives, with his wives, I'm sorry, and his concubines, more time that he will be with them on intimacy. And the Gemara tells us that instead of helping him decrease the desire to be with a woman, it went into the opposite direction. It made him to crave more to be with with his wives. So the Hasatan one night came and tested him, and this big bird, the Gemara tell us, I try to remember in the place that I read this, so I can give you the quote. Um, he came into his balcony in the middle of the night, and he saw this huge bird that was flying over his balcony, and he was a great man with the bow and with the arrow. He took his bow and he shot that big bird, and the bird went out flying downwards to where his bodyguards houses were on the bottom of the palace, King David, on the city of David. And he noticed that the strength of his arrow pierced the bird, and it brought him all the way down into this tent in a balcony down the hill. And he noticed and he heard the scream of a woman. So he told his people, hurry up, go and see if I heard somebody on that particular house with my arrow went with the bird. So when his servants came and looked, they told him, Lord, there is a woman named Bathsheba, and she's the wife of Uriah, one of your bodyguards, but she is okay. So the Gemara tells us that she wasn't naked of anything. It was like in the darkness. It was under her tent that she had on the balcony, and she was washing her hair. So that's what was going on when the bird hits with the arrow the top of this tent, and she almost gets hurt, but she didn't. So the next day, the King David asked his people to bring this woman so he can apologize. I'm trying to just remember part of the story so I can tell you the main facts. So when they brought Bathsheba, King David, the sweet singer of Israel, the Gemara and the scriptures, they tell us that when the prophet Shemuel, he came into the house of Jesse, the father of King David, he came to anoint him as the king of Israel. And when he saw King David coming through the door, the first thing he noticed, it was the beauty of his eyes. The Gemara tells us that the eyes of King David, they were the most beautiful eyes in humankind. He had all the colors of the eyes of humanity. He had green, he had blue, he had brown, he had black, gray, purplish. He had all the colors on his eyes. And when the prophet saw him, he heard the voice of the Ruach HaKodesh. This is him. Stand up and bless and put the oil on top of the head of the king of Israel. This is the king of Israel. So it's not only that he had beautiful eyes physically, but he also had a very beautiful and strong light on his face, because the eyes are the windows of the soul. So this beautiful soul that is an extension of Adam, the one that sings praises that Adam could not sing because of his transgression, he is the one that the Lord, our God in heaven, choose for to be the king of Israel. So the beauty of the strength, of the beauty of the eyes of King David is not only that he's a beautiful man of his appearance, it's also that spiritually he has the strength on his side to see. Let me go back. Let me go back to my, I think my internet's causing me problem. All right. So he knows the Messiah has to come from this woman. Well, and so what should he do? And halachically or legally, in times of King David, even I think King Shaul is the one that instituted this law for the soldiers of Israel, that every time that a soldier was killed on battle, he will leave a widow. Is not found, the woman cannot prove that her husband is dead. So nobody can take this widow as a wife unless legally she is called a widow. So the woman will be suffering, and the sons and daughters that this couple may have, they're gonna be suffering on the community because there is no man to sustain this family. So what King Shaul did? He instituted a law that every man of Israel that goes to the war, he will first, before he goes into the battlefield, he will give the wife a letter of divorce. Just in case his body is not found and he dies in battle, the woman will be able to marry another man, and she will be able to have her sustenance and for her family and for the whole household. So when King David saw Bathsheba and Uriah, he is on the battlefield, legally she has the letter of divorce. Legally, he can take her and he will not be committing adultery. But ethically, he should not be able to do that because he is the king of Israel. He is the great man of Israel. He's supposed to be setting a way of behaving for the men of Israel. So the question is, why will I do? What will any other man of Israel will do? If the Lord is telling you from this woman, Messiah is going to come, and if the husband dies in battle and another soldier takes this woman as a wife, the King Messiah is not going to be able to be born from other men. It has to be born from King David and Bathsheba. So King David is like, I have to make a decision. The only problem that he did the transgression, the main transgression of King David, is that he didn't wait for Uriah to die on the battlefield. And he took matters himself to try to accomplish the coming of the Messiah. And it's the sages, they tell us it's easy for us to judge great men. It's easy for us to see what the Torah tells us about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or what the sages they tell us about the life of King Solomon, in this case, the life of King David, or see the life of any of the prophets of Samson, or any of the great men of the Bible. We can say, why did he do that? Why did Adam sin when he was created? Why did King David make this decision? Why did Solomon took all these wives? Why all these men did all these mistakes? But we gotta see that these were great souls that the Lord brought into this world with a purpose, and they had great tasks to perform, and they had great tests. And the Bible is telling us all this. Even the Gemara tell us that King David was so ashamed of what he did, but he had to do it in order to bring Messiah and redemption to humankind. But still, after he understood his transgression of what he did, legally he was innocent, but morally he was guilty. And the sages they tell us that he literally died when he knew how the Lord saw his decision. And let me see, I saw this book one time. It's called Rav Chaim Kanievsky, who was one of the great sages of our generation. He just passed away, I think, about a year ago. And then I saw this book on the shelf one time when I was in Houston, and I'm like, I would like to have that book because it's about prayer, and I like liturgy. So when I was looking, Rabbi Kanievsky, Chaim Kanievsky, he's going through the prayers of the Siddur, prayer by prayer. And so when I opened the book, let me see if I can find it real quick. I saw his comment regarding the beginning of Pesukei de Simra. And normally Pesukei de Simra starts with Psalm 30. It's on page 59. We have Pesukei de Simra, Mismor Shir. Rav Chaim explained that this psalm is recited at the beginning of the morning prayers because it includes the verse, in the evening one lies down weeping, but in the morning a cry of joy. A psalm, a song for the inauguration of the temple by David. The commentator of the Bible, known as the Malvin, regarding Psalm 30, he asks, this psalm does not seem to mention anything regarding the inauguration of the temple, only praises over the recovery of a sick person. Rav Chaim explained that the Midrash, Agadat Bereshit, on chapter 38, teaches us that King David was gravely ill for 13 years. He then begged the Lord our God in heaven to heal him, in order that he should be able to teach the Jews about the Beit HaMikdash and how the temple should be built, which he had been taught by Samuel the prophet. Hashem, he accepted his plea, and he recovered his strength and taught them how to build the Beit HaMikdash. Now, Rashi, he explains that King David composed this psalm to be sung in the inauguration of the Beit HaMikdash. With the Midrash, we can easily understand that King David wished to praise Adonai for his recovery that enabled the inauguration to take place. And then it comes a verse. Adonai, you have raised my soul from the lower world. You have preserved me from the descent to the pit. Rav Chaim says that Sheol, the lower world, seems to be a lower level than the pit, the grave. How then can David say, you have raised my soul from the lower world, indicating that he was already there? And then you have preserved me from descent to the pit, saying that he was saved from descending there at all? Rav Chaim explained that the Gehinnom, or Sheol, because David conducted himself in a way that it was improper for one of his exalted level. His soul was in effect already on the Gehinnom. Through his repentance, the Lord raised his soul from that lower world and also healed his illness, preserved him from descent to the grave. Make music to Adonai, his devout ones, and give thanks to his holy name. Generally, Thanksgiving precedes joyful music making. We can see the Psalm 105, verse 1 and 2. Give thanks to the Lord, sing to him. Psalm 147, 7. Call out to the Lord Adonai with thanks, with the harp, sing to our God. This is in the Haggadah, Shel Pesach. The comment continues. To you it is good to give thanks, and to your name it is pleasant to sing. This is because one must first be thankful for which he has been given, and only then sings joyfully of his good fortune. Rav Chaim explained, however, that those who have perfect faith in Adonai trust him that he will save them, and they can sing joyfully for their salvation even before it occurs. Then, when they are actually saved, they thank him for his kindness. This is explained explicitly regarding Yehoshaphat, 2 Chronicles 20:19 to 27, and was also the case following the splitting of the sea. This is told in the Mechilta, the Shalach, Parashat Shalach 14:14. Here too, Adonai's devout ones who trust him implicitly sing to him before they even have the occasion to thank him. Rav Chaim noted in all this that King David actually descended to the Gehenna, meaning that it's like King David actually died, but the Lord raised him from the dead. So I thought this comment on Psalm 30, or what is called Pesukei de Simra, into the prayer structure, teaches us about how King David, because of his transgression, came into all this anguish, and his condition was not very good. And he knew he transgressed before the Lord. Legally, he didn't commit adultery, but morally, in a man of his stature, he did things that he shouldn't have done at that moment. He should have waited, and he was able to bring the redemption. He was able that King Solomon and the other sons from whom Messiah comes, Yeshua. We can see the generations of Messiah in the book of Luke and in the book of Matthew. And King Messiah is able to be born because of the decision of King David. But it wasn't easy for King David. But the Lord told him since the beginning, I'm going to test you. I'm going to test your kidneys, like you're asking. I'm going to test your heart. And I'm telling you, you are not going to pass the test. But if you want to be the fourth leg on my throne, you must go to the test. So we have all these beautiful psalms. We have all the structure of the prayer. We have the temple itself being built on the merit of King David, and it's called Sukkot David. It's called the Sukkot of King David. It's never called the Temple of Solomon. It's always called the house of David, or the tabernacle of David, that is being folded, but is going to be lifted up again when Messiah comes. So we see the importance of the sweet singer of Israel, what he wanted to bring for humanity. He wanted to complete whatever Adam was not able to do, but King David will be able to do it with his songs. He will be able to do it with his beauty, with his understanding, with his strength. Being the king of Israel, he can pull the redemption forward and be able to bring the Messiah. He had to do it. He had no choice. So who are we, or what is our stature to judge the decisions of a great man, a great one like King David, the king of Israel? So when King David said, "At midnight I will rise," the assumption is that he rose precisely at the midnight. The Gemara asks, did David know exactly when it was midnight? Even Moshe, our teacher, did not know exactly when it was midnight. How do we know this about Moshe? As it is written, that he said to Pharaoh, "Thus said the Lord, about midnight I will go out into the midst of Egypt." The word "about" indicates that it was only this approximation. It was only an approximation, and the Gemara clarifies what is the meaning of the expression "about midnight." Did Moshe say it, or did God say it? If we say that the Holy One, blessed be He, himself said about midnight to Moshe, is there a doubt before God in heaven? Rather, this must be understood as follows. The Lord told Moshe at midnight, but from the fact that when Moshe came to Pharaoh, he said about midnight. Apparently, Moshe was uncertain about the exact moment of the midnight. Moshe, the greatest of all the prophets, was uncertain. And David, did he knew when midnight is? Good question the sages are discussing. Rabbi Shimon Hasida, he said, a lyre hung over King David's bed, or when he was in the field with his flock, he will put his harp hanging on a tree or laying against a rock. So a lyre hung close to David's head. And once midnight arrived, the northern midnight wind will come and cause the lyre to play on its own. David will immediately rise from his bed or from his sleep, and he will study the Torah until the first rays of dawn. Once dawn arrived, the sages of Israel entered to advise him with regard to the various concerns of the nation and the economy. From what verse it is derived that David's lyre will wake him up at the midnight? Because the Psalm 57, awake, my glory, awake, harp and lyre, I will wake the dawn. This means that the playing lyre has already woken, and now I must engage in Torah study until dawn. Rav Seira offered a different solution to the question of whether Moshe and David knew exactly when it was the midnight, and he said, Moshe certainly knew when it was midnight, and David, he also knew. The Gemara asks, if David knew, then why did he needed the lyre? The Gemara answers, he needed the lyre to wake him from his sleep. And these great men of study, they're trying to understand how is it that King David will wake up exactly at midnight when he needed to take the lyre, he needed to take his instrument and start writing the Psalms for the book of Tehillim, for the book of Psalms. And here, basically, what we are being told is that the wind, the Ruach, will start hitting with the strings of the lyre or the harp, and then King David will be waking up because his ears will be ready to hear the call of the Lord, or in this case, the wind playing the harp. Uh, our beloved teacher and friend Joseph Good was telling me one time about these two sisters in the land of Israel. I think they're called the Harari shop of lyres and harps, that they were able to bring back the harp or the lyre of King David, and they built it for the Temple Institute. And they have different stories, different anecdotes about these two sisters in the shop, how they've been creating harps for decades, and uh, people been buying their harps, their lyres all over the world. And so one of the stories that I heard that he told me one time is that one time these two ladies, these two sisters, they were performing a presentation for the soldiers of Israel, for the IDF soldiers, and they had one of these harps or some of these harps with them, and they put one harp next to a tree, and they were explaining the soldiers about King David, and he will wake up in the middle of the night, and the ruach will start blowing, and the strings of the harp will start making music, and the soldiers, they were just smiling, kind of like doubting and saying, how can this happen? How can the wind be strong enough to move uh, the string of the strings of the harp? So they were just kind of like smiling, looking at these two women explaining the importance of this instrument. And suddenly he said that he was telling me that they told him, these ladies told Joseph Good, that suddenly a wind started blowing when they were explaining this, and the strings of the harp started making a beautiful sound. And the soldiers, they just opened their eyes and remained quiet, and everybody was like blown away by this wind playing the strings of the harps. And so that's what the Lord basically was doing with King David. He will bring the Ruach on the middle of the night. He will awake King David. King David will then take his instrument, and inspired by the Ruach HaKodesh, he will start writing the Psalms that we have in this beautiful book called Tehillim. Every time, God forbid, that one member of our family or one member of a community is going through a test or is going through some sort of sickness or any hard or emotional situation, normally the community asks other people, can you please say the book of Psalms on the merit of such and such, because he or she are going through this situation? And the people of the community, the family normally are like, yeah, let's do it. Let's just sing. Let's just pray with the book of Psalms at hand, and pray for the recovery of our beloved ones. So why do we do that? We do it because the Psalms of King David, they're not songs of this world. Those are songs that Adam supposed to be put together when he was created at the beginning of creation, but he was not able to do because of his transgression. And in this book that I have here called Comment on Tehillim by Art Scroll, is called Art Scroll Tanakh Series, Book of Tehillim, comes on two books. I'm grabbing book number 1 on page it's just the note 21 at the beginning, and it says 3 hours.
Edgar.
Yes.
This is Desi. Can you screen share the covers of your books so we can see them?
Let me stop share this. I can show you the cover of the book.
Thank you.
Let me see. You can see it right here, right? The book of Tehillim by Art Scroll. And the one that I mentioned earlier was this one, Rav Chaim Kanievsky on the Siddur. All right. And this is the commentary of Tehillim by Art Scroll. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to.
Thank you, Edgar.
You're welcome. Good thing you remind me to do it. I get carried away by reading all the notes, and I forget to share. Oh, I got it. So on this book, we have this paragraph at the beginning. They're explaining about the importance of King David and an overview, it says. And then it has a section or a little paragraphs called the 3 hours. Adam was created on the 6th day, on the eve of the first Shabbat. That day consisted of 12 hours, according to the tractate Sanhedrin 38b. On the 9th hour, God informed Adam of his duties and restrictions and commanded him to obey, and also warned him of the dire consequences of disobedience. Adam's roles as a conductor and caretaker of the world was meant to endure for only 3 hours, from the 9th hour to the 12th hour. Had he not succumbed to sin during those critical hours, Shabbat would have been ushered in and the world would have risen to sacred perfection. But Adam failed to follow the divine imperative. Instead of welcoming the Shabbat into Eden in the 12th hour, it was then that he was driven out. Not only did he fall, he dragged the entire universe down with him. He devoted the rest of his life to repentance. Adam scoured the passage of history, searching for that one unique soul which will lead the world back to perfection. He discovered the soul of David, which was inscribed to live for only 3 hours, symbolizing that David was destined to take over Adam's 3 hours mission of universal leadership and direction. Adam granted David 70 years of his life in which to fully accomplish this task. He also endowed him with the essential gifts of sovereignty and song. What was the true nature of Adam's sins and how did David plan to erase it? It is not adequate merely to say that Adam dwelt in paradise. We would be more accurate to say that paradise dwelt inside of him. He was blessed with the inner joy of security and self-assurance. He will trust himself. The agony of self-doubt never tormented the first man. He was completely at shalom with himself, confident that his every motive was pure. Rabbi Chaim Belotzin offers us this eloquent word portrait of Adam. The inclination for evil did not exist inside him. There was nothing inherent in his nature which could interfere with his spiritual ascent. Only one inclination urging him on, a good and positive one. No trace of friction or struggle existed inside Adam because he was perfect and harmonious blend of sacred forces. So, but well, this is the comment that it only took 3 hours before Shabbat when men transgressed on the on the um, on the garden, and then King David in one of his psalms, he's explicitly saying that he was like an abortive. He was only to live for like 3 hours once he comes out of his mother's womb. But then the Lord, on his mercy, took 70 years from Adam for King David to perform his task, bringing the redemption, bringing the Redeemer, I should say as well. So this is the type of souls of this great man. King David, the sages that tell us in this regard that because of his stature, he is not the one that wants to come into this world and lead people that do not want to follow him. King David, when he will go and fight the battles for the people of Israel, he tells us on the book of Psalms, on the book of First and Second Samuel as well, that he will follow his foes all the way, and he will not take rest until he puts his feet on their necks, and then he will accomplish the task. King David is the one that finishes the job. When the Lord told him, "You can build me a temple," the Lord immediately told the prophet, go and stop him, because it's not him that is going to build the temple. It is his son Solomon, because David has shed much blood. So the prophet had to come and tell David, your son is going to build the temple. You're not going to build the temple, because the Lord in heaven, he knew how King David would not take time. He will raise his sleeves and his hands and just build the temple immediately. So King David is the one that come into this world. At the first, it's like saying, actually, I don't want to be on this world. I will come to this world just to bring the redemption, but I'm gonna be coming roaring like a lion, and he's not gonna be dealing with people asking all these questions that are obvious. That are we part of the kingdom? Are we the ones that have been praying for your kingdom to come? When he comes, he's gonna set up the kingdom, and this is the personality of King Messiah when he comes as well. Um, at midnight, at midnight, I rise to give thanks for your righteous laws. Psalm 119:62. And the other verse says, my eyes forestall the watches, that I will speak of your word. Psalm 119:148. Taken together, these two verses indicate that the one that written, King David, he wrote Psalm 119 and 148 and 119:62. He rose at midnight, 2 watches before dawn, in order to study the Torah. How is it possible to reconcile these two verses? Only if there are 4 watches in the night, does one who raises 2 watches before dawn rises at midnight. So we can see how many people will be willing to arise or wake themselves up at midnight, which is called Chatzot, and be ready for prayer. This is what some of the great rabbis of Israel or other devout ones, they normally do when they do the prayer called Chatzot. And not all the Sidurim have this beautiful prayer on their pages. However, I'm gonna stop sharing so I can share a book with you. Um, Stop share. I know that some of you may have this book. This is called the Sephardic Sidur. Sephardic Sidur. And this Sidur is one of the most complete Sephardic Sidurim. You can see it by the thickness of it, all the things that are on this Sidur. But on page number 10, we call of the prayer what we're talking about, the prayer of King David, what is called Tikkun Chatzot, or the repair of the midnight prayer. Let me find it real quick. But if you're interested on your soul to be trained into the midnight prayer, you probably want to get into this type of sidur. There is other sidur. You might remember there is another beautiful sidur that I've been wanting to get, but somehow I haven't. Let me try to remember. I saw it on Joseph Good's shelf one time, and I was spending the night over there, and the room where they host me, it was the room of the Sidurim. So you can imagine I couldn't go to sleep easily. I had all these Sidurs on my lap, and this Sidur is called the Orot. It's called the Orot Sidur. And it's a very Sephardic detailed Sidur. Um, it has all kinds of notes and illustrations, and it's one of the Sidurs that I want to get. And I noticed that that one has also the Tikkun Hatzot. But over here on page 10 and page 11, you can see that we have the Tikkun Hatzot, the prayer of attributed to King David. So I just wanted to show it to you so you know what I'd be reading from. Let me go back to the slide. So here in page 10, we have Tikkun Hatzot. Before reciting the Tikkun Chatzot, some says the following prayer. For the sake of the unification of the Holy One, blessed be He and His presence, in fear and love, and in love and fear to unify the name Yud He with Bab He, in perfect unity, in the name of all Israel, behold, I am prepared to recite Tikkun Rachel and Tikkun Leah. When you say just Tikkun Rachel, when saying Tikkun Leah, you say Tikkun Leah explicitly, as established by our sages. May their memory be blessed to establish their root in a supernal place, to bring satisfaction to our Maker and to do the will of our Creator. May the pleasantness of my Lord, our God, be upon us. May He establish our handiwork for us. Our handiwork may He establish. And then the prayer begins with, please, Adonai, our God, and the God of our forefathers, may our prayer come before you. Do not, our King, ignore our supplication, for we are not so insolent and obstinate as to say before you, Adonai, our God, and the God of our forefathers, that we are righteous and have no sin. Indeed, we have sinned. We have been perverse and we have acted wantonly, we, our forefathers, and our families. And then give us a reading that we normally do on the time of Yom Kippur, and recognizing all our guilty. And then after you do that reading, you have what is called Tikkun Rachel. I'm gonna talk a little bit about it at the end of the slides, but I just wanted to mention, since I had the book with me. And Psalm 137 by the rivers of Babylon, and then Psalm 79, a portion of Eicha, and then you have this reading, which I really like. And it's a very special reading for me, because long time ago, when I was younger, probably 27 years ago, probably 25, my oldest daughter Jessica was already born. I opened the book of Isaiah, and when I placed my eyes into these passages of the book of Isaiah, I was reading those passages with a tune, and I'm not a musician, so it kind of shocked me that in my mind I was reading these passages with the tune, and I just changed the pages. And when I went back, every time I read these passages, it will be with this particular tune. And the passages are precisely this. When I was learning about the Tikkun Chatzot and noticed this paragraph on this Siddur regarding the midnight prayer, it almost brought me to tears, because it is a very endear passage to me. So the passages that I look on Prophet Isaiah are the following: look down from heaven and see from your abode of holiness and splendor. What is your zealousness and your might? Your inner yearning and your mercy have been held back from me. For you are our Father. Through Abraham, though Abraham may not know us and Israel may not recognize us, you, Adonai, are our Father, our eternal Redeemer is your name. Why, Adonai, do you let us stray from your paths, letting our heart become hardened from fearing you? Return to us for the sake of your servants, the tribes of your heritage. For but a short time did your holy people possess it. Our enemies have trampled your temple. So now, Adonai, you are our Father. We are the clay, and you are the potter, and we are all your handiwork. O Adonai, do not become greatly enraged, and do not remember iniquity forever. Behold, see now, we are all your people. And it has a little more, but I don't want to read it all for you. But it's a very, very beautiful and special prayer. The midnight prayer is called the Tikkun Chatzot. I'm going to go to our next slide. What is the time of Chatzot, and how does Rabbi Natan reconcile these two verses? He holds in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehoshua, for we learn in the Mishnah that Rabbi Yehoshua says, one is permitted to recite the morning Shema during the time when people rise until the third hour of the day. And it is the custom of the kings in Israel to rise during the third hour. Since it is customary for kings to rise during the third hour of the day, if David rose at midnight, we should be awake for 6 hours of the night and 2 hours of the day, which amount to 2 watches. Therefore, King David could say that he forestalls the watches, as he rose 2 watches before the rest of the kings of the world, meaning that he was not like a king of any nation. He will rise at the right time and he will prepare for doing the service of the midnight or the tikkun of the midnight prayer, and he will be ready also for the shacharit. So not very many people are willing to serve the Lord in this way. I mean, taking from your sleep to serve the Lord and then be ready in the morning to go to work. I mean, in my experience, even yesterday, we were in our congregation having the shacharit service. And then after that, we go and people bring food for to share one with each other. So we sat and ate. And after we eat, we say the Birkat Hamazon, and we sing some songs. And after that, we meditate in some aspects of the parasha. Somebody has their mic open, if you can mute it. I cannot see because I'm seeing the slides. And so yesterday I noticed that people very slowly and respectfully start kind of like disappearing from the service. So it was just a few of us at the end. It's like, where is everybody? We're gonna meditate on the parasha, and we were just kind of like smiling and saying, where did everybody go? But you can see that even on Shabbat, when Shabbat is the day of rest, and you have supposedly you don't have anything else to do but study the Torah and be on Shalom or take a nap or something like that. And it's hard to imagine that people have other things to do besides what is our duty. And what I'm trying to say, it's hard for people to serve the Lord in heaven like He expects us to do it. It's not an easy thing. That's why it's called avodah. It's from the word eved, which means service, or even is translated as slave. Let me stop share. Somebody has their yeah. Okay. Somebody had their mic open. Let me go back. So he will wake up and do the Tikkun Chatzot. So here we have Psalm 109, number 4. Even King David himself, he says, I am prayer. So he is the environment, his whole being. He say on Psalm 109, verse 4, I am prayer. Ani tefillah. He is the prayer made on a person. And so this is very important because the whole personality of the Messiah will be based upon this concept, because the lips of the Messiah are performing what King David used to do when he came on his generation. So the power of prayer, the power of tefillah, is given to us through the Psalms of King David. In the book of Ruth, when Boaz he took Ruth as a wife, we remember, in chapter number 4, he took 10 elders of the town, what we call a minyan, and the town is precisely Beit Lehem. So you can imagine, we have the greatest leader of the generation from the tribe of Yehuda, and he takes this woman, Ruth, that is from another nation, and he brings this woman that is from another nation into the house of Yehuda, to the headquarters of the tribe of Yehuda, to Beit Lehem, where the Sanhedrin, which he belongs to, are doing their service. So when he brings Ruth, he presented to the Sanhedrin. He said, I'm gonna be marrying this woman because the one that's supposed to be marrying her, he is not willing to take her. So he asked me, you take it yourself. I'm not interested on this woman for me to take her as a wife. And you can see just the same situation, that when you have a beautiful soul, it's not easy for that soul to bring the Messiah. It's always hardship, and it's always temptations, and the line of Yeshua, the line of Messiah, the line of King David, with always is gonna be threatened by different circumstances for the Messiah not to come into this world. So when Boaz, he finally is gonna take Ruth as his wife, he took 10 elders from the town and said, "Be seated here," and they sat down. And when he explained the situation to all these leaders of Yehuda in Bethlehem, they heard him, and they looked at him, and he said, and they told him, "May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and like Leah." Notice that is the headquarters of Yehuda. They supposed to be saying, "May the Lord make this woman who is coming into your house like Leah, who is the mother of Yehuda." Why are they placing Rachel before Leah? That's a big challenge for the leadership of Yehuda in Bethlehem, to tell Boaz to take Ruth, that is not even from the tribes of Israel, and make her like Rachel and Leah, both of whom build up the house of Israel. And we can understand this because when Leah was given to Jacob Avinu as a wife, it's supposed to be Rachel on her place, because Jacob worked for 7 years so he could get his beloved Rachel. But the father, the wicked Lavan, gave him Leah instead of Rachel. And what did Rachel did when she understood what's going on, and her father gave her sister as a wife to her beloved one? She closed her mouth. She didn't say anything. He didn't want to shame her sister publicly. He remained silent, and she suffered the loss of her beloved one for some time, at least 7 years. And but she didn't want to publicly shame her sister. And Rachel, which our sages that tell us that also the meaning of Rachel or Rachelah means she lamb. Messiah is like Rachel. He comes through the suffering. He comes to uh, do the redemption, and like a lamb, like his ancestors, Rachel, he did not open his mouth. And so that's why when when Leah explained, we have all this explanation on the Midrashim. When Leah explains Yehuda, her son, that her sister Rachel never ashamed her publicly, Yehuda understood, and he was grateful to Rachel all the days of his life. And we can see this, that when Jacob, they're asking Jacob Avinu that Joseph on Egypt is demanding that the young man Benjamin is brought to Egypt to see him. Jacob Avinu, he tells the tribes, he's like, "I already lost one son, and now you're asking me to lose one more? I'm not gonna let Benjamin go with you." And then the oldest of the brothers, Reuben, he rose up and he said, "Father, please let me take the young man with us. And I can assure you with my life, I put my life in your hands, that if I don't bring the boy back, I put my life instead of him." So Jacob heard him and he said, "I already lost one boy, and I'm not gonna lose Benjamin, and I'm not gonna lose you. So the boy is not going with you." And then Yehuda stand up, and he he placed a better warranty. He said, Father, let us take the boy, and I can respond to you, not only with my life on this world, but with my life in the Olam Haba. That's what I can tell you. And when he said this, Jacob, he heard, and he allowed Benjamin to go with Yehuda. So Yehuda will be the bodyguard of Benjamin from then and on. And you can see that when we went into the Red Sea, the first one that went into the water was precisely the descendants of Yehuda and the descendants of Benjamin. And you will see Yehuda working together with Benjamin through all the scripture. King David, when he comes and seeing to his brothers, his father told him, go and see that your brothers have the letter of divorce to their wives before they go into battle. Make sure that they gave those letters to their wives because they're on the battlefield. So when David comes and he hears this giant screaming aloud, saying, we don't need to go to war. We don't need to fight against each other. Just bring one of your men. Bring the tallest man. He's referring to King Shaul. Just bring your king. Bring Shaul to the battlefield, and I will fight with him. And whoever wins, that will be it. The rest of the people can go to their houses. And when King David is hearing this giant speaking this way about the king of Israel, he got enraged. He's like, why are you guys listening to the lips of this uncircumcised Philistine? And King David, he's from Yehuda, and Shaul, he's from Benjamin. So his duty is to take care of Benjamin all the time. So what he does? He goes and fights Goliath, and he kills him. And because that's Yehuda. Yehuda will always protect Benjamin. We can see that the altar on the Temple Mount is divided on half. Half is for Benjamin, and the other half is for Yehuda. We can see on the Brit Hadashah that when Yeshua appears before Shaul on the way, Shaul is asking, who are you, Lord? Who are you? And Yeshua is like, I'm Yeshua, who you're following to kill. And you are instrument on my hands. You are chosen to go where I will tell you to go. So you can see Yehuda and Benjamin are always teaming together. So everything here, we can understand it when the elders of Yehuda in Bethlehem, they tell Boaz, make the Lord, make this woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, both of whom built up the house of Israel. Even King David, he was telling his beloved friend, the son of Shaul, was forgot his name. How great is the love that is between you and me, just like the love of two women. He's referring to Rachel and Leah. So we can see about this that they told him, prosper in Ephratah and perpetuate your name in Bethlehem. David's time of prayer at midnight makes Tikkun for Rachel's crying for the exile of the tribes and the destruction of the holy temple, and bonds the sadness and the tears of Rachel with the joy of the prayer of Leah. The harp is the one that gives the signal at midnight. The 10 strings, Psalm 92:8 says, upon a 10-string instrument and upon the psaltery. All testimonies reliable to Israel are celebrated with 10, with a minyan. The harp upon which David played had 10 strings. The testimony for a deceased member of our family has to be in prayer. We cannot do this prayer unless we have a minyan. The testimony of the Barhu, we cannot stand up on the service, on the synagogue, or on the prayer meeting, and we cannot say the Barhu unless we have 10 men on the midst of us. Also, the testimony of Brit Milah has to be in front of 10 men. And also the testimony that we're saying that Boaz did with Ruth is called Halisa, the spitting into the sandal or of the shoe. is when 10 men are present. So that's why we're seeing here, and it is said, and he took 10 men of the elders of the city, meaning the seed of Messiah is coming forth. And we need for people, for the main leaders of Yehuda from in Bethlehem to know that from Ruth and Boaz, which is Yehuda, the seed of Messiah is going to be coming. So we can see in this slide that prayer, tefillah, is the strength of the kingdom of David. Our sages, they tell us that the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed because also, in another reason that they gave us, one of the reasons is because people will not acknowledge the kingdom of David. When the community doesn't acknowledge that through King David, the Messiah is coming, the temple doesn't have a need to be standing because it's called the house of David. So when people don't recognize this, it's also a reason for the temple to be destroyed. That's what I think the Zohar tells us about this. So the basic weapon of Messiah is prayer. This is the aspect of Hotem, the nose, as it is written. Isaiah 48:9, for my praise, ektom, I will restrain my anger, or to my nose, from you. Messiah, main vitality is from the nose. At the wars he will wage, and all his conquests will be from there, as it is written, Isaiah 11:3, he shall breathe of the fear of God. This is the aspect of the word Hotem. This is in Likutei Maharan, Torah number 2. Also, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 8. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom the Lord will consume with the breath of his mouth and destroy with the brightness of his coming. We can see very plainly that tefillah, prayer, is the weapon of Messiah. That's because tefillah, or prayer, is what King David will use to bring all the well-being for the people of Israel. It's also written in Psalm 132, of your offspring I will set upon your throne. This refers to Messiah, who is the aspect of prayer. If your children will guard my breed, by the means of the aspect of Joseph. Joseph, who guarded the breed, gained the rights of the firstborn. This corresponds to the divine service of prayer, which is an aspect of the double portion inherited by the firstborn. For prayer is itself twofold, as it is comprised of both praises of God and requesting one's needs. This corresponds to the double-edged sword in the hand, Psalm 149:6. For example, two edges, a double portion. It was taken from Reuben because he defiled his father's bed, for the birthright is dependent upon guarding the breed. One who is worthy of this sword must understand how to do battle with it. He should not deflect it to the right or to the left, but be able to strike at a hair and not to miss. Therefore, the victory of Messiah is based on prayer, on tefillah. When we open our Sidurim, I just wanted to put a note here. There is a section that we call Baruch Shemar. It's when we stand up, and it's called the 5 sections of Pesukei de Sinra. I think we saw it on the second video. You can look into the YouTube channel and see the structure of the prayers on the Holy Temple. And when you come to Pesukei de Sinra, in that section is called Baruch Shemar. We make a declaration at the end of this prayer. And in the songs of David, your servant, and we have 5 expressions of prayer, which that's the reason why Pesukei de Sinra, or the prayers prior to coming into the Holy of Holies, are structured on 5 sections. And the songs of King David, of David your servant. We will glorify you, our God, with praises and hymns. And then we have the 5. We will magnify you and praise you. We will glorify you. We will mention your name, and we will proclaim your kingdom. beautiful and glorious witness to his great name. Blessed are you, O King, glorified in praises. So in Pesukei de Simra is where it's clearly seen how the prayers that came in the merit of the patriarchs, they joined together with the Psalms of King David and prepare us to come into the holy place and then further into the Holy of Holies. So this is the importance of the Psalms of King David when he says, Lord, please allow me to be the fourth leg. Please allow me to be like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because he knew that the songs that he had, they're not from this world. And the Jewish people will need it on the service of the temple. And the Lord allowed him to go to the test. He literally died accomplishing this task, but he rose from the dead to be able to perform the building of the temple and the structuring of the prayer. So that way, every day when we get the book of the prayer book in our hands, we know why we do what we do, the merit of all these great men of Israel. So we can see that not only Pesukei de Sinra is divided on 5 sections, but even man itself has what we call the 5 parts of the soul. Number 1, when the baby is on the mother's womb, the Lord calls it nefesh. That's one of the first parts of the soul of man when he's created on the mother's womb. Once the baby is born, he comes into this world and then he receives the ruach. When he starts being nursed by his mother's breast, then he receives the neshama. Once the little boy or the little girl comes to accomplish the commandments and embraces the commandments, doing his bar mitzvah or her bat mitzvah, he is no longer just a nefesh, a ruach, or a neshama. It's also called chai. It comes to life completely because he is or she is willing to do the commandments of the Lord. And then after he or she gets married and has a family and completes the rest of his or her life, it is called at the time of getting married a yehidah. That's the fullness of the life of the individual. This is because the fifth world was when David looked upon the day of death and he said a song of praise, as it is stated, Blessed Lord, O my soul, Lord my God, you are very great. You are clothed in glory and majesty. Psalm 104:1. For even death is a time of transcendence for the righteous. So when we come to Pesukei de Simra, let's see if I can have it, if I can find it on my regular Siddur. I don't know where I left it. When we come to Pesukei de Simra, it's not just a special area of the temple called the Ulam, but you go inside the veil, you start singing the songs, the Psalms 145 all the way to the zenith of the book of Psalms, which is 145 through 150, and that will prepare you to come through the door and enter into the holy place. In other words, for us to understand that we're stepping into the holiest area that we were before, we got to understand what is it that we came into this world. Why are we called a nefesh? What we are becoming a ruach, a neshama, and a living being, high. And not only that, but we are willing to accomplish what we came into this world and be called also a yehida, a unity with the Lord our God in heaven, because we know that we're doing what he wants us to do it. And on this slide, I think I'm coming to the end. Tikkun has Chatzot, the prayer at midnight. We say this prayer. You can see it on the blue Siddur that I show you, this Sephardic Siddur. Lord of the universe, help me. Let me get up for Chatzot every night. Let me never be asleep at the time of Chatzot. Help me wake up and rise every single night at the exact moment of Chatzot. Let me do every single day of my life Help me still myself like a lion to devote myself to Torah and to the service of God. Wake up, my glory. Wake up, the harp and the string instrument. I will arouse down. Kind, loving King, help me pray to you at length in my own words every single day and express everything that is on my heart truly and sincerely and with genuine contrition. Help me pray to you each night after Chatzot. This is the most propitious time for the Hibodedut. Help me seclude myself from to express all my thoughts and feelings to you. Help me enter the innermost recesses of my heart and search for my good points and cleanse myself of all negativity. Let me develop my holy knowledge and awareness and always remember the ultimate purpose of my life and my destiny into the world to come. Let me always keep my ultimate goal in my mind and fix my thoughts in the world to come until I repent and return to you with all my heart. I will rise at midnight to thank you for your judgments. Dear God, you woke up those who sleep and wake up those who sleep. Have mercy on me, dear God. Help me get up every night, every day of my life at the exact time of Chatzot. Let me wake up from my sleep on Chatzot and get up energetically without feeling heavy and lazy. Don't let me go back to sleep again. Let nothing prevent me from getting up for Chatzot. And you, in your love and mercy, awaken the north wind that blows through King David's harp at midnight and make it give me the strength to wake up from my sleep in Chatzot. Wake up, my glory, wake up the harp and the stringed instrument. I will wake up at dawn. Help me wake up and get up promptly and energetically and recite Tikkun Chatzot. Allow me to weep for the destruction of the Holy Temple, for the exile of Torah, the secrets of which have been handed over to the forces of piety, and for many sins and transgressions which are the cause of all this and have prolonged this exile so long. Creator of the world, you know to what extent my sins have lengthened the banishment. Hey, what can I say? How can I justify myself? I stand before you full of guilt. So this is just some of the introduction of the prayers that people do when they pray Chatzot, and just wanted to kind of like put a few here with you. And I hope, as you can see, we can clearly see the personality of King David when he was doing Chatzot. You can also understand why the Messiah will he seclude himself. He will go the ascent of the Olivet to the Mount of Olives, and he will spend the nights praying, because this is the tikkun, the repair of the midnight. This is the prayer of the Messiah, the prayer that brings the redemption. May it come speedily in our days. And with this, I stop. If you guys have any comments or questions, feel free to